The 106th race in Formula E history will take place in the bustling, vibrant, colourful South American city of Sao Paulo this weekend. 22 million people will be waking up to some beautiful blue skies this morning in the most popular city in the Americas. It's been 9 years in the making, but the Electric Street Racing Championship makes its debut for round 6 of season 9. Now, the racetrack is a brand new racetrack. It's been 9 years in the making, as we said, but it's positioned in the Santana district, ironically the district actually where Ayrton Senna was born, one of the Brazilian motorsport greats, of course, and coincidentally this week it would have been his 63rd birthday. But it is a spectacular new track. It's based around the Sambadrome, home to the famous Carnival celebrations. And we can't wait to go racing here. It is, of course, the third new track on the season this year, but we kicked off in Mexico City in January. We had a doubleheader in Saudi Arabia and then went to Hyderabad, India and Cape Town. We've still got a doubleheader in Berlin, Monaco, doubleheader in Jakarta, a new track at Portland, another doubleheader in Rome, and we finish off with the grand finale in London at the end of July to find out who will be crowned the Season 9 Formula E champion. You can see there Pascal Wehrlein, a double win in Saudi Arabia. So this is the drivers making their way to the track this morning. Mitch Evans, nice smiles. Stoffel Van Dorn will be celebrating his 31st birthday tomorrow, so fingers crossed for a good result for him. Nick Cassidy, phenomenal performance from him last time out in Cape Town. All smiles this morning. Sasha Fenestras set the fastest average lap time of the race last time out, and it's his rookie season. Pascal Wehrlein, he is the man with a target on his back with his new teammate, Antonio Felix da Costa. So there you are, some beautiful city skylines there. This is how the Drivers' Championship looks at the moment. Pascal Wehrlein, despite not scoring in the last race in Cape Town, still 80 points, 18 points ahead of his biggest championship rival, Jake Dennis. Jean-Eric Verne for DS Penske, 50 points. A bit of a gap then between those top three. Antonio Felix da Costa, Nick Cassidy, Sebastian Buemi, just a handful of points split them. Lucas de Grassi, the highest ranking Brazilian racing driver for Mahindra Racing this weekend. Andre Lotterer still looking for that first win with Avalanche and Andretti. Mitch Evans looking for a bit of redemption this weekend as well. And right down there, Kelvin Van den Ende still looking for his first points, but won't be competing because Robin Freins is back in the game for Abs Krupa after his wrist has recovered. Teams Championship, Tag Heuer Porsche, 126 points, a lovely little gap there between them and Envision Racing. Just 4 points between them and Avalanche and Andretti. Again, Maserati, MSG Racing, only 3 points. Unbelievable. Nobody would have predicted that one. Joining me in the commentary box is Saunders CB. Saunders, take us through this brand new track in Sao Paulo.
Thanks, Nikki. Yeah, this is an 11-turn, 2.93-kilometre circuit, and the lap starts with an absolutely huge straight, foot to the floor, one of the longest straights in Formula E, into a very quick braking zone of a right then a left turn 1 and 2, hairpin for 3, another big overtaking potential here into the chicane 4, 5, 6, back onto another straight, which takes us down to the next overtaking opportunity, crucial there. Then we have two 90-degree turns at 7 and 8, leading us onto this very quick flat-out circuit that it's 10, 11, and back onto a super high-speed straight, and that is the lap here in Sao Paulo.
Thank you very much. A lap full of lots of long straights. We're going to see plenty overtaking opportunities. Let's take a look at the track conditions at the moment. 27 degrees is the track temperature at the moment, but that is only going to go one way, and that is up, of course. Predictions, track temperature reaching 60 degrees, which is one of the warmest races we will have seen this season, possibly out of all the seasons, actually. So a big talking point there. But all 22 drivers will now take to the track. This is the that's the third session. We had a shakedown yesterday when the cars go out just to test the tracks. It's a brand new racetrack. They're not on full power. We had FP1 yesterday afternoon, which was topped by Sebastian Buemi and then Sasha Fenestras. And this is FP2. Half an hour of running time to do your final bit of practice before qualifying gets underway in just a couple of hours' time. Now, as well as Saunders joining me in the commentary box, I am delighted to say that we have our Season 1 champion, Brazilian motorsport hero, royalty in the house, Nelson Piquet Jr. Good morning, Nelson. What does this mean to Brazil? We are finally here. We are racing in Sao Paulo.
Good morning, everybody. It's really great to finally see Formula E here in Sao Paulo. Biggest city of Brazil, probably of South America as well. It's been waiting for a long time for Formula E to come over here, so glad it finally arrived. Track looks really amazing, very organized, beautiful, well done. So yeah, it's a shame it wasn't here in season 1 for me to take part of it, but I'm glad it's finally here. And yeah, the track seems challenging, very quick, strong braking points. Race is going to be fun, that's for sure. With all the tows going on, a lot of slipstream, and yeah, just happy to be here. It's going to be a hot day. I mean, I walked in this morning at 6:30, 7 o'clock, and it was already 26, 27 degrees. So imagine how it's going to be around midday.
Now, you said you unfortunately aren't racing here, but you did get to experience the car yesterday. Talk us through that Gen 3 drive.
I did. It was much more enjoyable than I imagined. It's impressive how, I mean, how much it evolved during these years. You know, I was comparing it not even to Gen 2 car, to the Gen 1 car. And I mean, the change of direction, the speed the car can change because it's so much lighter, the speed in the straights, the power it has, is just a really challenging car. Obviously, the quicker these cars goes, the more challenging, the more physical it becomes for the drivers. So I remember it being physical already in Gen 2. I mean, I can't imagine how difficult it is now, and especially the level of concentration used to be so high because obviously it's only street tracks we go into, so margin for error is 0% basically because you have all the walls around you the whole time. So no, it's for sure it put a big smile on my face yesterday.
I bet it did. And speaking of smiles on faces, if anyone has checked out our Instagram account recently, Saunders is on there with a big smile on his face. A few, I'm going to say girly shrieks as well. Saunders, you went out with Bruno in the safety car. Talk us through that perspective.
Yeah, not just smiles, but my voice reaching new levels of high pitch that I don't think the world has experienced. Yeah, it was great. Honestly, that safety car is one hell of a machine. What it can do, you know, I feel very jealous of Bruno being able to drive it around. But this circuit, it's incredible. The straights just seem to go on forever. And then when you get into those braking zones, it's so much braking. It's incredibly impressive the way that car can get around. And these guys are going to be doing it even more so. And actually, that makes me think of a question I wanted to ask you, Nelson. Because every driver on the grid has talked about how energy hungry this circuit's going to be with the straights, and then also the efficiency coming into the later stages of the race, maximising those braking opportunities. So in a practice session like this, it's not just about lap time, is it? Is it about running programs to show how much you can save in the tow or anything like that as well?
Well, that depends a lot. I mean, obviously after practice, this pre-practice, you have qualifying. So a lot of the drivers are going to be focusing on trying to getting their reactions and the car really well set up for the qualifying, because qualifying in the in the top 5 positions, top 6 positions, it is key for you to have a good race. The more further back you start, the higher the chances are of getting into a little mess in the beginning. We know how these Formula E starts are. You know, they all get bunched up. Everybody wants to try to pass as many cars in the first few corners. So the most important thing, in the beginning, is to try to start up front. And after that, depending on how good your software is, how good it can adapt itself. I mean, these softwares are so smart nowadays because they start calculating, even if the track starts evolving and the apex speed starts changing speed, they start carrying more speed, the system starts calculating by itself.
Let's just take a look at this replay. Sorry, with Lucas Grassi, so to interrupt Nelson. So this is exactly what we were talking about. Basically, we saw quite a few of these moves happen yesterday, just the end of that first straight, just locking up a bit too much power coming into that first turn.
But that first corner, because it has so much runoff area, it makes the drivers want to really push and find the latest braking points. For sure, if that corner had a wall around it and it didn't have the escape area, you wouldn't see drivers pushing as much over there in the first corner. But going back to what we were talking about, a lot of these softwares are very smart nowadays, and you don't need to be doing so many race runs in practice. So the smarter your software is, the more you can tell the driver, okay, just focus on the quickest lines, on qualifying pace, and then during the race, our software is going to recalculate itself automatically to tell you where the coasting positions are, to really tell you what the optimal way to drive. Like that, you can have obviously the most efficient pace during the race.
So in terms of how much energy might be able to be saved sitting in the slipstream, Is that something that they run in practice to understand, you know, how the targets could change?
No, not the slipstream. The slipstream, basically, it's going to be more during the race where you're going to have an idea, you know. Basically, most of these drivers, especially the leaders, it's going to be fun to see today whoever's going to take the lead in the first couple of laps, when is he going to give up that position to start following someone and start saving energy? So I think we're going to see a lot of change of positions in the front. We're not going to see a guy leading the whole way. That's my prediction. Because you're going to see drivers trying to be in the toe the whole time to save as much energy, to have more energy during the end of the race to try to win this race.
So at the moment, we've got Dan Ticktum, who is on a bit of a push lap. This really interesting what NIO are doing this season. Dan Ticktum, Sergio Sese Camera, home race for him, so he's got the backing of the home crowd behind him. Dan Ticktum has really brought in some results for NIO this season because they've always been the underdog. They have much smaller budgets than a lot of the other teams. He brought home a nice finish in P6 in Cape Town and has now got, well, they've got 19 points between them. Sergio Sese Camera also finishing in the points. He had a P5 when we were in Hyderabad. And I think this is a massive turning point for NIO. They've been in the championship for so many years now. And this is a massive boost of confidence, I think, to the team. And Dan, yesterday, I think, yeah, he finished P3 in the practice
I'm going to push the next lap. I've just got turn one, I've just got no grip, so I'm going to have to push the next lap.
Okay, so radio message there from Dan saying he was going to do a push lap, but not anymore because he just didn't have any grip on that first turn, which is interesting because obviously that's what we saw Lucas Di Grassi there losing grip.
So talking about NIO, in past seasons, they would absolutely snatch at the chance of a point. P10, and we look at the last two races and we've got a P5 and a P6. That is, you know, to show the journey that this team have been on is incredible. Now, they are honestly a team now that can score points. And, you know, at the start of the season, Dan Ticktum was really kind of down in the dumps because his qualifying performance was so good, you know, getting into the duels, even challenging for pole positions. But then in the race, he would have to it'd disappear. In his words, he would say he'd be saving while the others were just, you know, already using so much energy and be able to keep pushing and pushing and pushing while these guys are saving halfway through the race. It's great. And
that's what's so nice about when we have a new generation car, you know, the start of this Gen 3 era, it really is a massive level playing field. So it gives those underdogs the opportunity to catch up with the front runners and, you know, to see the dominance from Porsche, which we've never seen in the past before. We can see Jean-Eric Vergne here on a hot lap. Now, Jean-Eric Vergne's also an interesting one. The results didn't come at the beginning for him, but the last couple of races, been on the podium twice. He had his first win of the season in Hyderabad, and that had been a long time coming for him, and then finished in P2 in Cape Town. So again, it took him and the DS team a bit of a while to get to grips. It's the first time that the DS team are running, speak of the devil, with J Penske. So they're officially called the DS Penske team, merged with Dragon Autosport. And but obviously Jean-Eric Vergne's teammate is Stoffel Van Dorn. He's down in P13.
Yeah.
He's the reigning champion. He's the defending champion.
I do think we are due a podium from Van Dorn though, because his pace has looked really good in the races. He's been quietly making up a lot of positions from, you know, making the most of bad qualifying performances and then making the positions up in the race. So the package is there. We've seen that with Jean-Eric Vergne. He's been on the podium 2 races in a row. So I think it is just a matter of time before Van Dorn can get up there.
Nelson, you know what it's like coming into the start of a new season as a champion. When you started season 2, how did you feel knowing that basically, yeah, everyone is there to beat you?
Yeah, I mean, our season 2 was a bit more frustrating because we had a big deficit on our powertrain. I was saying yesterday, we struggled to finish season 1. We weren't even thinking about season 2, while all the other manufacturers, they were already developing all the powertrain back then. So it was really tough for us. But I think in this season you have, I mean, let's imagine that, you know, the powertrain that has the least efficiency, maybe the NIO or maybe the Mahindra, we're not sure. But still, the difference between the quickest team and the slowest team is very small nowadays. So we're talking about Stoffel. I think it's just a question of getting everything together, you know, being confident in practice, having a good qualifying, and all of a sudden you're going to make a good race. The cars are so close and they're so lapping so close from each other that if you start behind P10, it is very hard. I mean, we only saw Da Costa winning the race outside of the P10 for the second time in all these seasons. So starting up front, it is one of the most important keys to be able to fight for a win. So, well, there we go, Stoffel in the front with a big margin. So Yeah, it's going to come down to qualifying. Stoffel just needs to get a good lap and be confident into qualifying. And if he's starting in the top 5, I have no doubts he has a very good chance of being in the podium.
Yeah, so Stoffel van Dorn just did a 1 minute 12.66. That's not quite as quick as the times that we saw yesterday. The fastest was a 1 minute 12.3. So we do expect the times to get a bit faster as the track temperatures rise over the course of the day. But again, quite interesting. I mean, the times have opened up a little bit, but so often we're seeing a session where all the drivers are within a second of each other, which just shows, as you mentioned, Nelson, just how tight things are.
You just see it there, the top speed graphic came up, 262 kilometers per hour, and these are from drivers that haven't even done a full power lap yet. This is just a 300. Wait till they get the 350 quali laps in. We could be seeing even more than that.
Yeah, it's going to be the quickest straight I think we've seen in Formula E history, which is always exciting. What could possibly go wrong? So Lucas di Grassi putting in a lap at the moment. He is obviously ecstatic this weekend. He's had quite a lot of media responsibilities on his hand, as you can imagine. He's also had his Event Zero Summit going on in Sao Paulo. But he's been involved, quite pivotal, I think, in trying to get the race in Sao Paulo happening. He said he was really pushing. He was involved in the initial plans when the race was going to be in Rio. Then he did about 3 different track designs when the race was going to be in Sao Paulo in season 4. And then this time, I think he just sort of helped politically manage a few relationships, but wasn't involved in the track design this time round. There's Fred Bertrand, the new CEO for Mahindra this year.
It's interesting what you say about di Grassi there, because he has a sort of a history of doing well in home races, or something he can call a home race, be it a team home race or close to a home race like Mexico was before now. He's actually got 5 podiums or better in the Americas as well. So it seems to be the closer to home, the better.
Saunders? Is this a subtle prediction?
I think energy is going to be hard. 1 lap pace, maybe he's up there now. It's good to see, but it's a completely different game when it comes to the closing stages of the race, when everybody is going to be tight on energy.
Yeah,
It's going to be an efficiency game, and that's where Mahindra haven't necessarily been that competitive so far.
This is very true, and this is where Formula E gets really exciting, and we haven't really seen it that much this season. We haven't seen such a power-hungry track, so the efficiency of the racing hasn't been as important, whereas today it's going to be absolutely key to success. So as you mentioned, the Porsche guys who have really nailed an efficient drive are going to, I think it's going to massively work in their favour, and the likes of Nissan, Mahindra, Neo, who don't necessarily have the efficiency, are going to be up against it. Let's have a look.
We will be boxing next lap. Happy to use the lap to assess a B-light change in a deck.
All right, so they're just going to do a bit of assessment, do some more tests, check some more data before Mitch Evans comes in. There's James Barkley, team principal. Again, Jaguar Racing 6th in the team's championship. Of course, Sam Bird, unfortunately, will be having to have that 5-place grid penalty after the accident that he had with his teammate Mitch Evans in Hyderabad. Unfortunately, Sam didn't run in Cape Town due to a big accident that he had earlier in the day. They couldn't get the car back up and running. So Jaguar, it's all to play for them today.
I feel it's a harsh penalty, but rules are rules, and especially because Mitch Evans had the drive-through as well in Cape Town, so they were on the back foot with not getting a good result. And the drive-through, the reason he got that was for exceeding power limits, and that's very much to do with the bumpiness of the circuit. It was 1 kilowatt he went over the legal limit, but rules are rules. So Nelson, on a circuit like this where you can see how bumpy it is, we saw Da Costa getting full-on 4-wheel air yesterday. Is there a chance that we could have more penalties from exceeding power limits from those teams that haven't sorted their software out?
Well, I mean, it's the same for everybody, I mean, if the rule's a rule, all these, 90% of the tracks, Formula E tracks, are really bumpy, so you need to have some parameters on software for it not to go over the power. So it is something normal that everybody has to deal with. Since season 1, it's been the same way. So I know everybody wants to reach as close as limit as possible, and then what happens when you want to reach as close to the limit? Sometimes you go over it, and when you get over it, you get a little tap in the hand. So yeah, it's a shame what happened. Last race was Mitch. He got a drive-through because of that. But they really have to manage to keep it under this limit.
It is annoying because there's no advantage. A little dip in power oscillation.
Yeah,
it's basically, we're talking like a millisecond here. It's not going to give them any on-track advantage. So Yeah, it seems unfair, but as you say, the rules are the rules. Otherwise, everyone would be doing it, and then there would be a cumulative advantage.
Exactly.
So, of course, it has to be monitored by the FIA. So, Sasha Fenestras now on a quick lap. Let's see what he can do. As we mentioned earlier, phenomenal rookie. Sasha's just having such a great start to the season. He's been brilliant in qualifying, and he put in the fastest average lap time at qualifying in Cape Town. Unfortunately, didn't manage to bring home the points, though.
That's an interesting story, that. If you caught that at the end of the race, with Nick Cassidy just catching the back of Sasha Fenestras' car, causing him to fall back. Now, that is a rivalry at stake there, because they have history in Japanese Super Formula. Ooh, and you can hear it on Sasha's radio. He says, Nick Cassidy loves me. Ever since Japan, he loves me. So I think there's something brewing there. There's definitely a bit of rivalry. It should be interesting to see if how that unfolds.
Oh, excellent. Okay, we'll keep an eye on that because we do like a bit of rivalry. Sometimes I think the Formula E guys, they're all very good friends. They're all too nice to each other. Like back in the day, I mean, the rivalries we had with you, Nelson, you and Lucas de Grassi, it was great. We loved it.
I think there's a lot of good actors out there. I think when they're inside the car, I think nobody's friends with anybody. When the helmet comes on,
right.
I think that brain turns around a little bit.
And if anyone has the Formula E app, I'd recommend getting it if you don't, because you can listen to team radios live, and what you'll hear is, yes, these guys might go for dinner after the race, but during the race they're trying to get each other's penalties left, right and centre. Yeah, it's very competitive, and it's about getting every single game they can against their peers on the track.
So Sebastian Buemi is still quickest in the session at the moment with a 1:12, so the time's really coming down after the 1:12.3 that we saw yesterday. So Robin Freins, guess who's back? I don't know, Robin, who is back? It's great to see him back in the car. Obviously a huge challenge on his hands, so he missed out on 4 rounds. He joined us from Mexico, broke his wrist really quite severely. You know, we've seen that the war wounds, the scars, it was clearly a serious injury there, but he's done really well to get back in the car, back up and running. He had a bit of practice last weekend, and yeah, it's good to see him here, but obviously starting on the back foot. He's basically starting a new season, and he's also still got a wrist that he's got to look after and manage.
Just seen on the timing sheet, René Rast up into the top 5. Now, the reason that's interesting is because if you look at that top 5, there's now 3, or actually in the top 6 rather, 3 Nissan-powered cars in the top 6. Now, overall this season, that's all been about other teams. Nissan have been kind of an underdog trying to make their way up, but they've clearly got the pace now with that package, and that relationship, McLaren and Nissan working together, seems to be paying off with 1 lap pace at least.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's good to see Sebastian Buemi back on form, actually, because he, you know, he's one of our most successful drivers. Here's a replay. Norman Nato just going all straight on at that turn that we have seen happen many a time already. I'm sure it won't be the last time we see it either. Again, just finding the limit of the car. But yeah, Sebastian Buemi, it's incredible, isn't it? Hasn't been on the podium for such a long time. Hasn't been on the podium all season. But he is, of course, the Season 2 champion. Got such a great pedigree behind him.
Now looking at Jake Dennis now on a push lap. Now, this Porsche efficiency is such a big storyline for this race, because you know it's all about where the cars are going to be towards the end of the race. Is it going to be? It's going to be about energy, about how much they've got left to use when everybody's having to save. And what we've seen so far this season is that Porsche-powered Andretti and the Porsche-powered Porsche just being so much better than the rest of the teams on that. So much so that on the track walk yesterday, Jake Dennis said quali's going to be hard for them because they've got issues with braking and maximising the exit speed, but he thinks P9, P10, the win's still on the cards. That's how confident they are with that efficiency.
Wow, yeah, I mean, there you go. That must give you just psychologically, such an advantage coming into a race weekend, knowing that you've got the car, you've got the right powertrain to get you across the finish line first. And then suddenly, hopefully, all your woes are lifted.
And especially for Jake as well, coming off the back of 2 very disappointing races, being, in his words, rasted in in India, sorry, and then in Cape Town having to do the drive-through penalty because of a tyre infringement. So yeah, he wants to get back on the podium big time.
So Norman Nato, 3 tenths faster than Sebastian Buemi there. I mean, a pretty impressive lead there.
Depending on which way you look at it as well, it could be the seat he's taken. is Nato taking potentially Buemi's seat from Nissan and doing better than him in the time.
Are you predicting another rival?
I'm just creating them now.
Yeah, I like it. Let's keep stirring. So Dan Ticktum, I'll be really, really interesting to see what he does here. I'm excited for Neo this season. I'm excited for Dan Ticktum, excited for Sergio Setian-Camera. Again, you know, it's his home race. And you know what? I think because, as you mentioned earlier, the results haven't come for Neo. When they do, they're absolutely ecstatic. They're over the moon. And it's exactly what... Can you imagine going years with no points? I mean, it's so disheartening for the race team. And they put in just as much effort as everybody else. They just maybe haven't got the same funding and the same backing. So there we are. Dan Ticktum in at P3 at the moment, 2/10 off Norman Nato.
And there we go, looking at Nato, Hughes, Brass. That's 3 Nissan-powered cars now in the top 4. That is good pace from Nissan-powered cars.
Right, let's see what Jean-Eric Verne can do for DS Penske as he comes into the end of Sector 3. Nearly 6/10 down there on pace, so it's not going to be over the moon with that one. Let's take a look at this replay with Dan Ticktum for Neo. I'm going to predict he goes straight on at turn 1. No, he brushed the wall there, so not too much of an incident there. No damage done to the car, just a little tap, just, again, finding the limit, finding the edge.
Okay, good space ahead of you. You've got 8 seconds to jab ahead.
Max.
Just keep an eye on Mortara behind you and Rust.
So, team radio from Pascal Wehrlein, just giving him some information about the lay of the land on the track. It's obviously so critical to position yourself in the right place during these hot laps in FP2, because you don't want to get caught up in traffic. So you've only got a couple of shots at doing this, and you really need to maximise the opportunity to practice this before you go into qualifying, because when you go into the qualifying in the group stages, you've got one chance to get into the duels. So, not bad. Let's see where Pascal Wehrlein's going to come in at the end of this sector. Slightly off the pace in Sector 2, 10th off at the moment. Can he make it up in Sector 3? Not bad, 3rd. A 10th off. Max Günther there at the top.
I think they'll be happy with that, because 1 lap pace is something they feel they're struggling with. So I think having a top 3 time like that is great. But Maximilian Günther, I mean, it's the same story, isn't it? He looks quick, he looks fast. So just have a quick look at this replay from Pascal Wehrlein.
Lovely little slow-mo there of Pascal Wehrlein.
Interestingly, you see the change in mirrors we've had. It's now extended mirrors after the driver complaints.
So yes, tell us about the complaints of the last ones, because they really weren't happy.
Good change then. Okay, stop for behind, 10 seconds. Track position should be good.
So, got the all clear, track position's good, off you go. Set the best time you can, Nick.
Clearly happy with the change they made there. Yeah.
Yeah, so quickly, what's the difference with these new mirrors?
So, to give you an example, the overtake that Da Costa did on Jean-Eric Verne to get the lead in Cape Town, Jev said he didn't even see him coming because of the way the mirrors were angled with these new cars and the sort of tracks they're racing on. So there's been a bit of a request from the drivers to extend the mirrors outwards so they can get a bit more perspective on who's coming behind, and they've done that. And you can see they're a little bit wider now, so there's a bit more point of view, which is good. I think it's going to help the racing. It might make some defensive driving a little bit more suspect, but it'll be interesting. It'll be good for us to watch either way.
Right, so Nick Cassidy now coming into the 3rd sector. What time can he do? Can he beat Max Günther's 1 minute 11.7 seconds? Not quite, but still a respectable P4 at the moment. Nick Cassidy there, 1.5 tenths off. I mean, Nick Cassidy has done a phenomenal job. 2 podiums in the last 2 races, ironically alongside the same 2 drivers with Jean-Eric Verne and Antonio Felix Costa. Lovely little piece of slow-mo there, just bouncing off the curb, but still great control from Nick Cassidy.
Now, it's really, seeing Max Günther at the top, just the same story once again to Costa Team Radio.
Set the end of the lap. Push now.
Going for a push lap. Yeah, Günther being up there again with a quick lap. We've seen this guy start the race on the front row before, and yet he still has not got a single point this season so far. And even the team boss, James Roster, will say it's not the car, it's not the team, it's just consistent driver errors that are causing Maserati issues. Nelson, from your point of view, driver point of view, how hard is that when you're getting yourself in great positions to start races in front row and then still not having any points to your name? That must be incredibly frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, in Cape Town, it was 100% his fault. You know, he was in a good position, was running top 5 solidly, and he outbraked himself a little bit and went to the wall. But no doubt, we all know he's a quick driver. Obviously, the more the pressure builds up, the more you start pushing, the more you start going over a little bit over your limit. So hopefully he'll keep his head a bit cool this weekend and try to make it obviously safe qualifying, try to put it in the top 10 and then try to deliver the first few points. But yeah, I mean, it's never easy. But yeah, I mean, we know he's capable. It's just about not doing a mistake.
He's just been flirting with the wrong side of the limit at the moment.
Yeah, just pushing a little bit too hard. I was a bit surprised last weekend. I mean, it wasn't the end of the race. I think it was halfway through the race when he touched that wall. And you know, I don't know. If it was towards the end of the race where you were pushing, defending a position, try to fight for the win, okay, you know, it happens. But you know, he was in a sort of in a race rhythm over there in the middle part, just waiting for the right time towards the end to start pushing, and yeah, and then he got himself into the wall. So he lost concentration for half a second over there, and that happened. So it's a shame, but hopefully we'll see him getting his first few points here in Brazil.
So we've got both the DS Penske drivers on a hot lap at the moment, Stoffel Vandoorne and Jean-Eric Vergne. This is going to be really interesting because obviously we've seen their improved performance over the course of the season. Slightly struggling with the qualifying at the moment. I mean, Vergne did pretty well. He got into the duels on the last 2 rounds, but was nowhere at the beginning. And Stoffel's only been in the duels once. So let's take a look at what they're going to do in Sector 3 as they come across the timing line. Stoffel Vandoorne at P6, 2/10 off Max Günther.
It's interesting to see so many.
That was a good one.
So many full. Look at these 3 cars here, all full power laps, but they're not thinking about trying to get ahead of each other or build up the traffic. They're just sitting behind each other. Is that potentially because they feel like they're going to be able to improve lap time by getting a bit of slipstream?
No, it's just the track position, you know. I mean, they don't want to back off because that's the only lap they have probably to push. There's a car slightly ahead, one slightly behind, so, you know, everybody's trying to do their job. I mean, it's worse for the guy that's sitting third over there because either one of them in the front does a little mistake, it's going to affect his lap. So, yeah, it's track position is always complicated, you know, because you have people doing different strategies during practice. Some practicing qualifying, some with different powers, 350, 300. So, yeah, it's crucial. But everybody kind of respects each other. They know when there's somebody quicker coming behind. Usually the team tells us, okay, driver X is coming behind you. Make sure you give him some space. So they tend to, and 95% of the times, they all respect each other.
So Andre Lotterer now on a hot lap. Saw him just earlier getting a little bit out of shape at the beginning of that lap. So he's going to really need to claw it back in Sector 2, Sector 3. Now Andre...
No, I was going to say, top 10 cars only spread by 2.5 tenths. The top 10 cars. So, yeah, you can see how similar these powertrains are. There's not that much of a difference. I'm talking about speed, not efficiency. Efficiency in the race is a whole different ballgame, but I mean, in terms of pure speed, you can see that they're all very similar. Now a little bit more of a, well, no, still 2.5 tenths between P1 and P10. So it is going to be very, very close qualifying, that's for sure.
So Andre Lotterer there in P13, not quite matching the pace there of his teammate Jake Dennis. Tricky one for Andre Lotterer. I mean, he has scored in 4 of the opening 5 races, but he's the only Porsche powertrain driver outside the top 10 in the championship at the moment. So we've got Sam Bird in P10, Mitch Evans down in P21 at the moment. Let's take a look at what Mitch can do at the end of this.
Not a particular, yeah, I don't think that was a push lap, so to speak. But it is interesting, it's a shame to see them down there because they've shown really good one-lap pace so far this season. So you would expect the likes of Evans and Bird to be a bit higher And that goes for the other Jaguar powered cars as well, Sebastian Buemi and Nick Cassidy in the Envisions.
We'll have to find out what's going on down at Jaguar, because that's not the redemption race that they were hoping for, looking at those times at the end of FP2. So we've got Antonio Felix da Costa back on top with a 1 minute 11.496. And then actually a great gap, 2.5 tenth gap between him and Max Günther.
That is, that's a huge story, because one lap pace has been the area that the Porsche power cars have really struggled in. They've had to do all of the work during the race.
Attention all drivers, this is race control.
Really quickly, so I'm systems limited at turn 7. I could have made the corner there, I didn't want to take the risk.
Please obey the flags.
Interesting. So yeah, just quickly on da Costa, that Porsche power car has really struggled in qualifying. If they've got good one lap pace like this and they can carry that into the group qualifying and then into the duels, that's incredibly competitive for Porsche. To be able to be good at one lap pace and then good on efficiency is everything they want. Is this an issue for Lucas di Grassi here, or just stopping to allow cars past?
I don't know. That's the answer to that one. Back up and running though, so I'm assuming he's just going to make his way back into the pit lane.
Looking at Robin Friends, missing the last couple of races and being a new car, everybody obviously doing these first few races, and was no practice obviously, you can show how much it affected him, I mean, Robin probably it's gonna take maybe at least 2 races to start getting into the real rhythm, which everybody is, If there were practice between the races, probably he would have had the chance to get more familiar with the car, but because it's the first season.
This is race control, just a heads up. We've lost control.
This is race control, just a heads up.
We have the ability to activate the start lights, so feel free to do your practice starts without the start lights, please. We apologize for this.
Right, so that's Scott Alkin there, the race director, basically saying that the start lights, they've lost the ability to actually put start lights on, so they're going to do their practice starts without the use of them. Ah, there they are, up and running now. Nelson, how critical is the practice start?
Well, it's pretty important. I mean, every venue has a different surface, and it's constantly an evolution of the software to have the best start, to have the less wheel spin, to get basically to use the maximum amount of power that the tire grip is allowed to give you. So I know it's not something they work on massively, but this car obviously has much more power than grip. So it's finding the exact amount of grip that the tire is going to allow you put power on. Because if they would go flat out, like you see, you're going to wheel spin the car. It's not even going to move. So it's the software understanding how much grip that tire has and having the best launch possible.
And that is one of the significant differences between combustion racing and electric racing, right? It's that instant torque. It's that there's no build-up of the engine cogs working up. It's just all power straight to the wheels.
Exactly, and obviously these are not.
We can take attack again, but remember
these are not slick tires, so they have a little bit less grip as well. So that makes even the software work even harder. You have instant torque of obviously being an electric car, and you have tires that are not slick tires, not race tires, so it makes it 3 times as hard to get that good start.
That homogenization of the tires, though, obviously a huge part of Formula E is competitiveness. Everybody on the same tires. It's the same across any conditions throughout the whole race weekend. So, that plays a big part in everybody being in the same boat.
And also efficiency. You're not carrying 100 different sets of tires. It's 2-3 sets of tires for every team. And that's, it's the same for everybody. So that's what matters, It's about good racing, not about trying to be as quick as possible, So Formula E is about efficiency, about obviously the smallest carbon foot, and these tires, whether it rains or we're driving at places at 35 degrees.
So let's take a look. Sorry to interrupt you there, Nelson. Just have a quick look at the final classification for FP2. Antonio Felix da Costa, our winner last time out in Cape Town, is back up on top. What a start for him with an 1 minute 11.49. Max Günther, 2.5 tenths off for Maserati MSG. Can he convert that into quality performance? Norman Nato for Nissan, fantastic there. A P3 result for him. Pascal Wehrlein our championship leader at the moment for Tag Heuer Porsche in P4. The Neon McLaren guys were looking quite strong there. René Rast in 11th. Sebastian Buemi dropped down to P12, which was unusual because we saw a great start from him yesterday in FP1. Sam Bird, that was looking for redemption, unfortunately hasn't come, with his teammate Mitch Evans at Jaguar TCS Racing down in P22. So we'll have to find out what is going on with the Jaguar guys. Well, what a great start to the day here for round 6, ahead of the very first Sao Paulo E-Prix for round 6 of season 9 of the ABB FIA Formula E Championship. And look at that, people are already queuing up to come into the track. It's based at the Sambadrome. It's such a cool venue. This is home to the all the carnival celebrations that take place in Sao Paulo. When it's full, packed full, 103,000 people you can fit in this Sambadrome. I mean, what an amazing atmosphere that would be. And I can't wait to see the passionate Brazilian fans come in their hordes today. So there we have it. Nissan, who are looking extremely strong today in FP2. All the drivers just getting to know the track a little bit better in this half an hour FP2 session. The Porsche team looking good in a bit of slow-mo action. But yeah, it was an interesting session with DS Penske back on top, but Maserati for Max Günther also showing that they have the performance. Let's take a look at the highlights from this session as the 22 drivers went back out on track for the third time this weekend. So, and the Mahindra girls, not the only one to do it, going straight on, and it happened again there, straight on at turn 1. We've seen that quite a lot. The drivers there just finding the limit of this brand new track in Sao Paulo. Also, tyre temperatures were cool, track temperature was cool. Rather bumpy ride at some points during the course of this session as well. I always love these. Love at first ride. Nice little saying there from the Porsche team.
There's Nick Cassidy now. He was up there or thereabouts, but not the sort of pace that we'd expect to see him based on, or the ambitions in general with Buemi as well. Lucas Di Grassi here, the hometown heroes. It's perhaps not just a home country race, but a home city race for Lucas Di Grassi.
So Abt Cooper back up and running after obviously they didn't run. Neither of the cars or the Mahindra powertrain cars with Abt Cooper ran in Cape Town, but Robin Friends is back in business, which is great to see. The Neo 999 team were just, Neo 333 team, apologies, were just flying today. A great performance from both Dan Tickton and Sergio Tete Camara. A home race for him as well, one of our 2 Brazilian drivers.
And here is the man who topped the timings, Antonio Felix da Costa. This is a great start to the day for Tag Heuer Porsche, because qualifying on 1 lap pace is where they've struggled. So to be up there now after the second practice session is great news for them.
Absolutely phenomenal to see. This just means it is wide open. We really couldn't predict what is going to happen in today's E-Prix, but we can guarantee plenty of excitement. So we've got the Nissan drivers there going back to the base, the Porsche drivers going back, Antonio Felix da Costa going back to the Porsche Tag Heuer garage to have a little bit of a debrief. How are they going to continue that performance into the qualifying session? This is when we will find out who will be starting from pole position. Join us in a couple of hours' time for the first qualifying race here in Sao Paulo as we go racing in Brazil.